I will take a motion to approve the agenda.
So moved, Mr. Chair.
Second.
All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Same sign. The ayes have it, Mr. President, unanimous. We will now go to our invocation of Councilmember Kelly.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Would you all let's bow and pray, please. Dear Heavenly Father, we thank you for the blessings of this day. We thank you for friends and neighbors who make our lives worthwhile. We ask that you guide and direct our hearts and our minds tonight for this meeting, and let us always make good decisions for our county. I ask that you be with our men and women fighting for our freedom. When we hear of all the unrest in the foreign countries, it makes you proud to have the freedoms that we have. And we ask that you help us protect that by guarding our men and women who are fighting for that. All these things I ask in your name. Amen.
Thank you, Ms. Kelly. I will now receive a motion for the approval of minutes regular meeting June 23rd.
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Second.
All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed by the same sign. The ayes have it, Mr. Brown. We don't have any public presentations tonight, so we're now down to item 6, public comment. Ms. Brown, do you have any to say to it?
Yes, we do. Ms. Beth Jenkins on the subject of detention/interview.
Beth Jenkins, District 2, Carolyn Robinson is my representative, which I'm not sure where she's at, and I think we should be told that. On the inmate health, I do have an issue. I think that we need to look at who's responsible for that. I don't think there's a good following. I don't think there's a good procedure. The whole thing is just a mess, and I think that county council should make some rules, and inmate health should be taken very seriously, and that's all I want to say. Thank you.
Thank you.
Take that into consideration.
Mr. Chairman, I'm sorry, we missed. Ms. Jenkins, would you give us the topic again? Mr. Perry and I didn't get that. Inmate health?
Inmate health. I think there are a lot of questions on that that we need expansion on.
Okay. Next, Ms. Brown.
Mr. Randy Bright, Economic Development.
Randy Bright, District 1, Ridgeway. First, the t-shirt has too many meanings for me to go into all of them, but I would want to explain one metaphor, one learning metaphor is that ants get a tremendous amount of stuff accomplished because they're focused on opportunity and not on making excuses. And let me convey an analogy to our county council. Most of our criticisms are met with the natural human response of circle the wagons and make excuses, deflections. It's happened all too often. Human response, understand it. But when you circle the wagons, you go nowhere. And let me give you just some paraphrase quotes to some areas where we've pointed out opportunities in particular areas. People are working hard. What does that mean? Results count, not whether. We understand people are going to be working hard. That's a given. I have faith. What does that mean? That's not results, not resolutions. Other counties are failing in this area too. That's looking for excuses. The Low Country has improved their operation. It's the economy. It's Nikki Haley. The wall didn't fall by itself. Excuse after excuse. And let me give you an example just very quickly, running out of time. I'm going to remind you or point out probably for the first time that we all know our hospital's failing. Bleeding, hemorrhaging, about to collapse. Revenue is way down. part of that problem is that, do you know that only 41% of Fairfield EMS deliveries go to our hospital? Now, a typical response that I would expect would be, well, there's this reason and that reason. I realize there are some reasons that's not it. The problem is that we should be looking at, here's an opportunity to get revenue. We'll never get to 100%, but surely we can do better than 41%. Why aren't people going to our hospital in emergencies? That's a lot of money that we could capitalize on. So responses should be formed not in excuses and reasons why. They should be formed in resolutions. How do we take advantage of this opportunity in our hospital to build our income with only a 41% delivery rate in the entire county? That's inexcusable. There are reasons for it, natural reasons, but not that many that we can't raise that considerably and help our hospital. Thank you. Good timing.
Thank you, Mr. Bright. Mr. Billy Smith, procurement policy.
Billy Smith, District 7. I just wanted to really come and ask that we discuss the procurement policy updates that are on the table tonight a little bit more than we normally discuss things, because it's just in my opinion that our council doesn't really ever discuss that much as it should in front of the public, again, in my opinion. Especially since in the paper that came out last week, I saw that there's an idea out there that we save money by not taking bids on projects. That is completely foreign to me. Everything I've read and looked at, that has not been the case. It's always been that people save money when they accept bids on things. So I don't understand where that thought's coming from, and that's why I want discussion on this topic. And I just want to say that I don't know if the audit was read by everyone, but our audit that we had done last year, we just approved this company to do the one, I think again, at least for next year's Elliott Davis. Our audit last year in talking about the Jolly Park wall and us not accepting bids for that, a quote from that was, by foregoing the bid process, there is the risk that a more qualified contractor could have been engaged for a lower cost, lower price. That's what Elliott Davis put in the audit report. They're a company that does this for many counties. They see this all over the place. I just don't understand how we have someone here who thinks that we are saving money by not bidding out these things. I certainly think we didn't save anything on the Jolly Park wall and what it's going to cost us in the long run. But I would like that, ask that we have more discussion on this procurement policy because of that. Thank you.
Thank you. No one else signed to speak on that subject.
We will now down to public hearing. If you would post that public hearing for us, Ms. Brown. Item 7.
The Edward Byrne Memorial 2014-2015 JAG, which is the Justice Assistance Grant Funds. The application is requesting funds from the United States Department of Justice, Office of Justice Programs, and Bureau of Justice. The funds will be used to assist in paying for capital purchases, administrative and operational charges of the Fairfield County Sheriff's Office during fiscal year beginning October 1, 2014 and ending September 30, 2015.
Officially open this public hearing at 6:14. Do we have any signatures, Ms. Brown?
No one signed to speak.
Okay, council, any comments?
Mr. Chairman, this is something we do normally every year, correct?
Yeah.
Same thing. Thank you.
Mr. Pope, do we have a particular items that the sheriff's department is going to use this money for this year? Do we have that information available?
Yes, sir, it's available. Mr. Gaither's here. He could briefly update us on that if you'd like.
Good evening, council and community. This year, the Edward Burns grant is going to be, actually the Sheriff's Department has requested for 8 Dell computers, which will be mounted in vehicles. So what is able to do when they're pulling a suspect over or something happens, or whether they're in the community, It's able to get the information immediately. They're able to find out if there's prior warrant or something for their arrest. All the information is right there and available. And again, many other communities have these already mounted in their cars or whatever. So this is if anyone understands about computers, they kind of go out of date like pencils. So, in 6 months there's something improved and newer. So this is specifically what they're asking for is Dell computers to help assist with information and regarding the people that may be DWI or have other felonies that when they pull them over.
Council, questions?
Some of my cars had computers for quite a while, so these are just replacing the old cars off these.
Some of them are new. Some of them are maybe new vehicles that have been switched out, and these computers may have been old computers, and they weren't really equipped for the car. So we put those in, but these will be new ones. So they are actual. Some of them are non-replacement computers.
Any other questions? Hearing none, I close this hearing at 6:16. We are now down to ordinance, resolutions, and orders. Second reading, ordinance number 635. Any discussion on that, Mr. Pope? Okay. Do I have a motion?
Move, Mr. Chairman.
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed by the same sign. The ayes have it unanimous, Ms. Brown. We're now down to second reading ordinance number 636, and I'm going to go to Mr. Pope for an explanation on this one before we do it.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good evening, council and citizens of Fairfield. Mr. Chairman, what I'd like to do is go over letters B, C, and D. Since these are second reading, we will have our, presumably, if council decides to move forward, third reading and a public hearing at that time. But just want to go over the specifics as to where we are on these items. If you recall, each of these three we actually placed on the public agenda by title only. A lot of these items, of course, we have constantly been working on to bring those to the public venue. The first one, second reading ordinance 636, is authorizing Fairfield County to purchase and develop approximately 1/1200 of an acre of real property to be used as a fire emergency station. This is a replacement station in Ridgeway. The property owner that we are buying property from is Ms. Judy Davis. We are working with Brown and Company Real Estate to actually develop that land. That is, of course, that is not Mr. Brown, but that is Brown and Company. The purchase price that has been negotiated is $65,000 for that area. We have actually worked with our fire marshal to make sure that the response times that we have, that people are not negatively impacted based upon that location. So people's ISO ratings are not negatively impacted, but that will actually gain some improved response times. So that is the first item in letter B. Letter C is an ordinance authorizing Fairfield County to purchase land known as Rufus Belton Park for, it mentions here recreational uses and location of emergency personnel and services, being a portion of Fairfield County Tax Map 152-0-00-037. This is actually an existing lease agreement that the county has had for a number of years. What the county actually has located on it a operational fire station. We also have an EMS station on that property. It also happens to have, of course, by its very name, the Rufus Belton Park. There is actually a softball, a baseball facility, as well as a concession stand on that facility. Some months ago, with the pending expiration of that item, and the county looking to not to acquire any additional cost to build a new fire station, we entered into negotiation, and what we're bringing forward is to purchase It's approximately 6 acres of property in an amount of $150,000 for that property, which includes the fire station, the EMS, and the recreational amenities that are on that property. I would also just like to mention to that, the county some years ago, I think maybe 2 or 3 years ago, changed its policy whereby the county had previously entered into long-term lease agreements on property. However, the county would improve some properties by building structures on the property. But of course, once the lease runs out on that, of course, you lose the ability to have that improvement on the property. And so this was one of the reasons, the rationale behind trying to secure and purchase that property in order to be able to maintain the fire location there, the EMS, and the existing recreational opportunities that are there. Those dollars, of course, are not a part of the recreational plan. That's in a separate plan that's coming back to council. It should be in the next few weeks. We have met with you individually on that information, so that will be coming back relatively soon. The last item is second reading on ordinance number 638. This is an ordinance authorizing Fairfield County to sell and convey county-owned property located off of Center Creek Road containing 405 acres more or less by private sale. This information was mentioned publicly, that we would open this process publicly for people to be able to make options on the property. Ms. Beverly Frost has been our agent on this property. She was the agent prior to this particular situation. When the county was looking at investing, I guess, the land in potential opportunities for a retirement village type situation, of course, the market went south in 2008, 2009. We actually, when we extended a contract with her, looked at that opportunity again and did not see a market for that on that particular piece of property. However, we have a signed agreement where that property is going to be purchased. We actually, the county was able to obtain $3,000 an acre for that property, which is certainly a very strong return investment on that piece of property for the county based upon what we paid for that. I think you would be hard pressed to find other property listings where someone has received that price per acre on property. And so we're moving forward with the sale of that land, of course, and we'll have the third reading, presumably if you move forward on this, the third reading and public hearing on that at our next meeting. It was discussed previously that the proceeds from that particular sale, or at least it's my recommendation to you, that we reinvest those funds in future economic development opportunities for the county. And so that's staff's recommendation to you regarding those. The information that we have, Mr. Chairman, the contracts, all of that information, after your decision on those, of course, all of that information will be made public, and all of the information is contained within the contracts that we have entered into thus far. Also, the county attorney has reviewed all of the information that we have brought forward on the public agenda. Thank you.
Okay. I'd like to make known to the public that I have 2 statements of potential conflict here from Mr. David Brown on ordinance number 636 and ordinance number 638. So those will be read into the record, and Ms. Brown those will accompany the night's minutes. Okay, we're now at 6:36. Do I have a motion? So moved.
Second.
All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed by the same sign. Okay. We're now down to C, second reading ordinance number 637, Rufus Belton Park. Do I have a motion? So moved. Second. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed by the same sign. The ayes have it unanimous, Ms. Brown. We're now down to 638, 405 acres. I have a motion.
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Second.
All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed by the same sign. Okay. Thank you, Council. We see board and commission minutes now. We are now down to item 10, and we will do these one at a time. If you will look on your appointment ratification sheet, the first one is Construction Board of Adjustments. Do I have a motion?
Move, Mr. Chairman.
Second.
All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed by the same sign. The ayes have it unanimous, Ms. Brown. The second one is the Library Commission, District 4. Do I have a motion?
So moved. Second.
All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed by the same sign. The ayes have it unanimous. Ms. Brown, would you post those names for me, please?
Those individuals appointed tonight to the Construction Board of Adjustments, Mr. John Cammon, C-A-M-M-O-N, to the Fairfield County Library Commission, Ms. Zakiya, Z-A-K-I-Y-A, Ginyard.
Thank you, Ms. Brown. We're now down to old business procurement policy approval, committee recommendation.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, sir, Ms. Pope.
Council, if you recall at the last meeting, there was a motion made to defer this item. I think Councilmember Robinson made that motion to defer the item until she could meet with staff. Ms. Robinson did meet with Ms. Pickett and went through the questions that she had. I can tell you that from the draft that we brought forward from the committee to the full council, there were not any changes of substance. There were some grammatical things that probably 95% of what Ms. Robinson actually went over with Ms. Pickett were grammatical changes, what we agreed to. However, she did mention there were two substantive things that I thought that needed to at least be addressed by the council. Number one, out of courtesy to her, based upon her question, and also brought before you so that you would clearly know what those items were. And if I could, Mr. Chairman, just to briefly just go over those two things. I can do that, I think, in an efficient amount of time. The first is, when she met with staff, under the procurement review panel, the procurement review panel is where there is a panel that's appointed to look at procurement challenges that come about because if a vendor or someone who submits a bid has a question about that, or if they want to protest that, of course, that panel is the one that reviews that information. And under that language, the way that it reads is the panel shall consist of 5 members appointed by the Fairfield County Council. And when we were looking at that, thinking about our form of government, we would suggest to you that that would need to be, we would recommend that it be changed to read as follows. The panel shall consist of 5 members recommended by the administrator and approved by Fairfield County Council. So that's just probably was an oversight on our part, but we would recommend your consideration on that. The other thing that Ms. Robinson had pointed out was this is under the contracts amount, and this is the last sentence of letter E under multi-term contracts. And the language reads, total contract years shall not exceed 5 contract years. That's what was in the document that you saw. Ms. Robinson recommended that that should be amended to be 5 consecutive contract years. That was her recommendation. However, from a staff perspective, we would recommend that the language stay as it's stated in the document that you already have, that the total contract years should not exceed 5 contract years.
Council, any discussion?
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir.
I have a question that I think I raised on the committee when we had our meeting with the procurement. I have not met since with the administrator or the staff. And that was in the language of the grants. I did go back and I reread that again in terms of minority grants for minorities. If I recall, relying on memory, it specifically say the minority grants for Hispanics, minority grants for African American, and it went on to say other. And my question at that particular time, if you're going to be specific about Hispanic, African American, and the others happen to be white women. And I did a lot of research on that, and it appears that 80% of all those grants generally go to white women because they're much more situated educationally. Husbands are lawyers, have better education than the minority women. My simple question was, why didn't we just use the language of just saying white women rather than other, or women of all colors? Why would you sing out 2 ethnic groups and then just kind of imply what the other groups would be? That was my concern.
Mr. Chairman, Councilman Monsoria, is just to, this is actually in the definitions, and we actually, if you recall, we went back and actually amended the language from that committee meeting, and it reads as follows. For minority and disadvantaged businesses is, I apologize, I have my glasses. Is a small business which is owned or controlled by a majority of persons who have been deprived of the opportunity to develop and maintain a competitive position in the economy because of social disadvantages, and or is owned and operated by a person considered to fall within the category of a minority group. Such group, and this was the key that what we tried to address, is such groups include, but are not limited to, Black Americans, Hispanic Americans, Native Americans, and women of all ethnic groups.
That's what we left out of the meeting.
I'm sorry?
No, I understand.
No, sir, this is what we amended it to based upon the discussion. Because it did not read that way when we first brought it to committee, but we amended it to this language because that was what we at least understood. That was a consistency of what, because we did get into that very same discussion that you mentioned, and we changed it to women of all ethnic groups.
Mr. Polk, can you read the entire what you just said, the paragraph one more time?
Sure. And this is number 18 under the definitional part of the procurement manual. And this is minority and disadvantaged businesses. Is a small business which is owned or controlled by a majority of persons who have been deprived of the opportunity to develop and maintain a competitive position in the economy because of social disadvantages, and or is owned and operated by a person considered to fall within the category of a minority group. Such groups, plural, include, but are not limited to, Black Americans, Hispanic Americans, Native Americans, and women of all ethnic groups.
Mr. Polk, was that not what was voted on in the meeting?
Well, out of fairness, that was what was decided for staff to go back and amend the language to this based upon the discussion that occurred in the committee meeting.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Marshall?
Yeah, let me just say this, Mr. Chairman. I do understand that, and I read that. What I'm saying, even with that, you do the research yourself and go and find out minority women, even small businesses, even here in this town, when it comes down to getting those grants, almost 80% of those grants do not come to Latinos and African American women. Now that might be with something Washington D.C. at the State House or who manifests that, but if you research that, to me it appears to be some kind of discrimination going on. So that was my complaint, whether we pass this or not. If you look at the historical record or look at the record out there who actually get these grants, it's disproportionately in terms of ethnicity.
Mr. Chairman, Council, I can say just one thing. I don't necessarily disagree with Councilman Masseria. However, our policy here does not, no pun intended, but does not discriminate in that way. Because that I see as, I mean, that's a separate issue. But we're trying to make sure that we leave it open to all women, regardless of race or what have you. We're not making a determination about which types of women are receiving those awards. We're just leaving all of those open. When they do apply and bid with the county, they would be considered in that category.
I got you.
And that is consistent with state and federal regulations.
Yes. Certainly, if it's, I heard that, and
Yeah.
if you do it fairly, and I hear you say you're doing that. What I said, my research indicated nothing, no fairness going on with that in the general terms of grants like that. So I want the county to be aware of it, and it seems like you're aware of it, and use the language to make sure that everybody's inclusive. That's what I'm hearing you say.
Well, that's what we attempted to do.
Okay.
Okay.
I just want to be clear about that. If there's any fairness, it's only happening in Fairfield. Let's move on.
All right.
Chairman.
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Milton, would you tell me what your recommendation was on the first disagreement Ms. Robinson had?
Well, this was just inclusive language on, I'm sorry. But this was on the procurement panel. And in fact, I don't know if she had an issue. Was that one of them?
No, that was not one of
Okay.
them.
The second one was the issue that she
Second
had
one.
on the.
I heard the second one, but I
yes,
didn't know
ma'am.
if the first one was.
The first one is that was staff oversight, and it should, what we're recommending that it read is, the panel shall consist of 5 members. And that's the same language that you saw from the committee level, but recommended by the administrator and approved by Fairfield County Council. So still, it comes that way, but we recommend that list of persons to you to establish the procurement panel in case if there is a procurement protest.
Thank you. Mr. Chairman, I'd make a motion that we approve the procurement policy with the recommendation on those 2 issues from the administration.
And I second.
Okay. Mr. Pope, just one thing for information. That would be a public choice. I mean, you would select those from the public or from employees or combination of both or what?
It can be a combination of that. However, that recommendation has to come back to the full council.
Okay.
Yes, sir. I mean, it's not just kind of done and, you know, it's done within the public life.
Okay. All right. Any more questions? If not, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed by the same sign. The ayes have it unanimous, Mr. Brown.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, sir.
Just one last thing on that, just like we did at the committee level, and just to kind of recap for the public benefit, because I see some citizens that actually participated in the meetings that we had at the committee level, as well as when this issue came before council before. But we will post the amended document online again, where it's a part of the policies and whatnot. So after the minutes are approved and whatnot, we will actually post this actually on the website as well.
Okay. We're now down to new business, consideration approval of application for 2014-15 JAG grant funds.
So moved. Mr. Chairman,
Okay.
I think that's one item, I believe that needed to be deleted, because I think that was the item we moved to committee. And so we don't need to have any action on that.
Okay. That will be forthcoming in the next meeting.
In the next meeting.
It was in committee. Okay. Explain B to us, Mr. Pope. under new business.
Mr. Chairman, what you have, and I'll just be inclusive of both of the, just address both of them together. We have two services, pest control services and inmate health care services that staff desires to bid out. We actually have received information under these two services. We have spoken to council members individually about these two services. We presently have local vendors that provide services in both of these areas. And of course, one of the things that we've been trying to do, at least during the past 8-9 months, is trying to maximize the use of local vendors if there is an ability to do that. And based upon that, I think that there was a concern that we make sure that we give our local vendors the benefit of the doubt before awarding these two areas of service to outside, or could be potentially outside vendors. And the council members wanted us to actually research additional information. And one thing I want to be very explicitly clear about, however, is in regard to inmate healthcare services. For a small detention facility like ours, I, as your county administrator, have absolutely no concerns about that. The level of service that we have been receiving, I think, is on par with, of course, what is required by state jail minimum standards. We would be looking into this, doing some things if we, of course, bid it out to possibly include those services. But I wouldn't want anyone to think that we are not providing adequate services at the Fairfield County Detention Center. Pest control services, one, of course, and I think we've dealt with this in the past, but from my understanding, what council would like for us to do is actually do some additional research and then bring that back. So in essence, what we're, if that's what you prefer, is to vote and direct the administrator to bring back that information, and keep in mind that the cost that we're paying for these services right now will remain flat and will not increase until staff comes back, and probably this won't be until the next budget year.
Okay. Do I have a motion?
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Any discussion? Hearing none.
Let me just say
Okay.
this though, Mr. Ferguson, we've talked about this in the Finance Committee for the individuals that came to the Finance Committee. Anytime that we have a local vendor and they're competitive to any outside bid that may come in, I would tell you, I would personally recommend that we do business with our local business owners. And if there's any way possible we could stay competitive and still keep our local business owners in business, I would highly recommend we always do that. So just want to say that.
All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed by the same sign. The ayes have it, unanimous. Mr. Pope, at this point in time, I would like for you and Mr. Anderson to, because of this comment that was made from the microphone tonight, to make sure that there's nothing out there that we need to know about as far as the health care at the detention center. I haven't heard of anything, and if y'all are aware of anything, if you would make the council aware of it, and if you aren't aware of it, if you would check and make sure that we're doing what we're supposed to be doing in the manner we're supposed to be doing, and I'm sure we are.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, sir.
I usually don't respond on the spot because of something potentially could be out there that I don't know, but I will tell you this. The only issue that I'm aware of that we've had, of course, is a need for technology upgrades, which we've brought to council, of course, through the procurement process of bidding. Some of those costs have come back pretty exorbitant. We've had to rebid several times on things. We have had to provide care in one particular case due to an individual that was arrested, where we had, that individual needed some specific medical care that we could not provide at that facility, so we have contracted with other entities to be able to do that. We brought that to council's attention because that was pretty expensive. but that is actually the only item that I know about within the past year that's been out of the norm that we've had.
Mr. Chairman, one thing on this subject, I'm just going to piggyback. I saw one day, this first part of last week, where Richland County went through training for treating mental health inmates. And they interviewed a lot of the gentlemen and ladies who had taken that training and said it was amazing what they learned in that training. And I know it's always been a concern for me for the mental health, but I do know we must take in some prisoners from time to time who have mental health issues. And I just would like maybe for administration to look into training our gentlemen and ladies at the detention center on taking care of mental health patients or inmates if we have not already done that.
And this particular case that I was mentioning actually involved those type of things. And
yes.
And just as a side note, detention centers all across the state of South Carolina, because of lack of funding from the state level, have had to provide mental health services that they really aren't accustomed to providing, and have had to take on those costs. And so all jails across the state are having to do that, and actually a part of Richland's accreditation process was in their medical.
Right.
But we do actually work with and funding that this council provides to the Department of Mental Health. A part of that goes to allow them to work with us in the jail when people need to be moved out into facilities that are more responsive to the needs that they have, because we are a detention center, we're not a prison, and so there are certain things and certain rights that individuals have that are different from when you're actually incarcerated in a correctional facility. So we adhere to that based upon South Carolina State jail minimum standards.
And that's a shame that the state legislature will not give funds for that, another unfunded mandate. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, thank you. All right, we are now down to 13, the county administrator's report. Clerk.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We've spoken a lot about procurement. We have our procurement director, Ms. Sheila Pickett, and she has a brief presentation for us. Ms. Pickett.
Good evening, council and citizens of Fairfield County. Thank you. I'm Sheila Pickett. First of all, I just want to thank you for approving the procurement manual that we set forth and tried to update and come in compliance with our audit report. Just thank you. The main job of the procurement office is for us to purchase supplies, services, that includes construction work for the county on the day-to-day operations that we do provide for our departments here and some of the agencies outside that we do provide services for. In my office, it's just me and Brian Boyer, the Deputy Director of Procurement. Our contact information. Some vendors may wonder how you do business with Fairfield County. We have on our county website full detail of how to register to be placed on our vendor list. Fill out your company information, your W-9 information, and forward it back to us. We'll put you out. We'll put you on our vendor list. Also, and if you could want to know about solicitations that we have that are currently out that needs for you to provide a quote for, please forward your information to us. It's out on the county website. We also post our information on our SCIBO. SCIBO is not just for the county, but it's there. If you go on the SCIBO, South Carolina Business Opportunities website, you will see where not just Fairfield County jobs are out there. You'll see other local governments and from the state level where other vendors can go and apply and register for jobs. Also, we do post our solicitation in the local paper, which is the Herald and the Voice, Blythe Board. And of course, it's always on our county website. If you go on our county website, you will find up under purchasing, you will find our active bids that we have out there now. They're currently open for solicitation, and sometimes we leave them out there until the award has actually been awarded to the vendor. Also, you'll find our bid tab for that solicitation. When it came in, we post the solicitation out there of the vendors who submitted bids to a project. Vendors are required, all vendors that provide services to Fairfield County are required to have workers' comp insurance. Insurance required for special general liability is $500,000 up to $1 million, and it all depends on the project that they're working on. I know some vendors say, well, it's just me, I'm by myself, I don't need workers' comp. Well, you're not required to have workers' comp, but through the Association of Counties, we are required, before we hire an vendor, they must have workers' comp. Because if you don't, the Association of Counties pretty much penalize us for you not being a vendor that's covered by workers' comp. We do require bid bonds on our projects, and it all depends on the size of the projects. We say up to $50,000, but some projects depend on the sensitivity of it. Just saying that they was doing some work at the detention center where it requires working, you pretty much coming in some kind of contact with the inmates. We do require a bid bond on that because security issues. So we just want to make sure everybody is safe and secure. So we do require a bid bond, and that, just saying, just one particular project is $19,000, but we did require a bid bond for that project. I just want to focus on some of the key points of the procurement that council approved, and these are some of the major changes that are in the manual. Our procurement, we said competitive purchases, currently right now in the manual is $1,500 for purchases. We have to require 3 quotes for purchases. Since office supplies, if someone purchasing office supplies and it came up to $1,550, we are required to go out and get 2 other quotes for that to make it competitive. So what we did was come in compliance with the state and some of the other counties that they raised the limit to $2,500. So if it's $2,500 or more, if the quote is under $2,500, we're not required to go out and get another quote. We can go with that one quote, $2,500. But if it's over $2,500, we will go out and solicit for 2 other quotes from vendors. Approval authority for any purchases over up to $15,000 can be approved by me, the procurement director. Purchases of $25,000 or more has to come through county council for approval, and that means that the end user must fill out, if we go through the bid process, the end user must fill out a request for action form, goes through the committee for approval, and back to full council for final approval before we can award that purchase of buy for anything over $25,000. Conflict of interest. Main statement in that says no employer, elected official, or close family member allowed to award or bid on a project. Pretty much, if they're in the decision-making point, they cannot bid or say that they're going. I want to say you cannot just make a decision on that bid. You need to abstain from that vote. Also, and another thing, a close family member, that's one of our definitions that I put in to kind of reiterate what a close family member is. That consists of siblings, aunt, uncle, in-laws, cousins. Just try to give you an idea of what a close family member could be. Anybody that's employed with the county. Performance and payment bonds and insurance coverage, anything in excess of $50,000, of course, there is a performance and payment and bid bonds that is required for projects, most construction projects, and that's up to $50,000. And also those 3 lines is also part of the definitions that were included. We did do some upgrade to our definitions. Other changes that we made, a retainage fee. For all projects, there's a retainage fee of $10,000. We need to, we hold back 10% of that particular project. So there's a retainage that we hold back that we don't pay the vendor until the project is complete. duty of a contractor. And that was one of the items that were listed in the end about a contract, what they need to do. And basically what they need to do is to require a permit for inspections of construction projects that include electrical work, HVAC work, and construction work. They must, and it all depends on which jurisdiction they're in, whether it's county or town, Winsboro, they need to register for a permit, and of course the inspection will happen from someone from county or the town of Winsboro. And of course, we did put in some upgrade of some definitions, and of course the manual will be posted on the county website. Any questions from council?
Ms. Pickett, I have a question. And it could just be me, but going back to the authority limits, you could go back to that page where it said right there, approval authority and limitations. It says purchase up to $15,000 approved by director of procurement. Then purchases in excess of 25. Maybe I'm kind of missing. What about the gap in between that?
Mr. Pope, that would be up to the county administrator. He can approve items up to $25,000. Anything over $25,000 will come back to council for approval. That's just not stated in here, but.
Maybe just for clarification, I just wanted to say. Thank you, Ms. Pickett.
One thing, Ms. Pickett, you do,
Mr. Chairman, can I say one thing, just so everybody's clear about that, or comment about that? Clearly, the county still has to have the documentation on the other bids that have been solicited to be able to do that. That's not just a one-way where you just kind of select somebody to do it. So all of that documentation has to exist, just like with the $15,000 for the Department of Procurement. That other information has to have the requisite information with it as well.
Yeah. And I also just want to reiterate, that does not just include just the bids, but just say if a construction project is in the works and we realize that construction, they left out something, there's a change order. The change orders, anything, if the change order is over $25,000, still has to come back to council for approval.
one thing, Ms. Pickett, you have had meetings for prospective vendors, have you not?
Yes, we held a vendor forum in October of last year, and of course, we only had 2 vendors to show up.
So that was one of the things that council said need for, because we had folks here in the county said that they wanted to do county business, but they, so we asked that this forum be set up so that people would know how to go about bidding on county jobs. So I'm glad we did that. Any other questions? If not, thank you, Ms. Pickett. Mr. Pope?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just trying to find the sheet. The Drowdy Park update, the vendor actually has been on site. Actually, there's been a pouring of concrete for the footer. We're waiting in order to proceed on the project for the requisite inspection information. There was a question about the PSI level of the concrete. That should be satisfied by the 17th, where work will proceed. It's kind of tough to say. The next item, Mr. Chairman, and actually that was the document I was looking for on the Fairfield County Alert System site update. This is just something that, of course, our EOC department has been working on to be able to help with the assistance of getting information to our emergency services department. There was an article, I think the article was in the Herald, talking about our 911 system and 911 Enhance. I know a lot of communities are facing that same issue. But this would in some ways help to address the efficiency of that. Letter D is something, D and E, that we need council's approval on. These were some pretty voluminous packets that we had sent to you that had actually gone to committee and the committee has voted on. This is the courthouse renovation committee. Met on both of these items in June. The The first one is the courthouse architectural design. Based upon the number of folks that actually bid on this work, staff had recommended to the committee, and the committee had approved Mead and Hunt as the company that we would negotiate with. Of course, we don't have a final price on this yet, but if you approve that, then the staff will negotiate with Mead and Hunt, and this is for the upfitting of the Hahn building for the courthouse relocation, which that has to happen, and we have to move everybody out before we can do the renovations at the courthouse. So, Mr. Chairman, I would request a favorable recommendation on the committee's recommendation to the full council that we proceed with Mead and Hunt, and that you allow staff to negotiate with them, and of course bring back that negotiated price for the county council.
Mr. Pope, do we have some kind of idea of the time span that we're talking about before these numbers come back?
I think it was, Sheila, do you remember?
60 days. Give it 60 days before we can actually negotiate. 60 days. But we actually have to sit down and discuss it with them. But as for the project, the preliminary drawings they have in front of them tonight, but it shouldn't be that long before contract is signed and then work is started.
Right. So between 60 and 90 days.
Okay. All right. Any questions? There's a pretty established blueprint of what they intend to do, and it was presented to the committee. But if no questions, I will receive a motion.
So moved.
All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed by the same sign. The ayes have it unanimous, Ms. Brown. Mr. Pope?
Mr. Chairman, Council, now the next letter E, this is the courthouse renovation project for administration. If you can recall, at the committee level, when the committee took this up, Davis and Floyd and the county had already paid for the information that led to the assessment of the courthouse building and all of the things that needed to be replaced and or repaired. However, we can't do any of that work until, of course, we have the first thing that you voted on, all of that done, to be able to move everybody out to do that work. The committee, we have, the other part of this, of course, this does have a price in it, which was approximately $104,000. But what this would allow us to do, and this would actually come out of the bond, but this would allow us to lock in that price when Mead and Hunt actually begins their other work on a parallel track. So what this does is goes ahead and actually locks in that, but this is for the work that's to be done, and they will be the project managers for the actual work at our existing courthouse. So this is a part of the same project, but of course that has to be done as well if we did not want to lose the funding, the dollars that we'd already spent on the assessment document, of course, and we made that document public. You have that as well regarding all of the parts of the courthouse that actually need improvement, upgrade, renovation, or retrofitting. So this would actually be you acting upon the committee's recommendation to you for us to move forward with Davis and Floyd for the renovation at the actual courthouse.
And let's be real specific. These are they will be the project manager. They will not be doing the work.
That's correct.
They have the project manager for that project.
That's right.
Okay? Any questions of Mr. Pope?
For the courthouse.
The courthouse, right.
Existing.
Hearing none, I'll receive a motion.
Second.
All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed by the same sign. The ayes have it unanimous, Ms. Brown.
Just to reiterate, Mr. Chairman, those funds, of course, would be deducted from the bond for those costs. Mr. Chairman, the next item, letter F, economic development update, that is actually an executive session matter. legal advice on industrial park easement, executive session, legal advice on airport property litigation, that's executive session, and legal advice on Chinook Road, executive session, and a contractual proposal for consideration, that is executive session as well.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Pope. Now to Ms. Bryant. Okay, now down to 15, which is second public comment. You have some signatures.
Yes, sir. Ms. Dorothy Brandenburg on quarry update.
Thank you, County Council, citizens of the county. I'm Dorothy Brandenburg, District 7. I just wanted to take a couple minutes and let y'all know, many of you that have been following the paper know we had a small meeting with DHEC 3 weeks ago. I'm sure Mr. Pope did a wonderful job filling council in, but for those of you who weren't at the meeting, a lot of our concerns were taken back by DHEC. They realized, it's legitimate concerns that we have, and they're in the process now of asking the mining company itself to provide significant information regarding these issues. I'm in the process right now of setting up with Rich Moses, the CEO, I guess, with the mining company, of a trip out to see some of his other facilities. We're shooting for August 7th, if any of you want to go, but that date doesn't work. Let me know. Questions about the quarry at gmail.com, direct link to me. I check that at least 2 to 3 times a day. Moving forward, we're getting to the point now where everything's kind of going into limbo. We're waiting on DHEC to get the answers and to let us know and all of these things. They did say that the public hearing would probably be late October or November. So we're really getting into a stage where you're probably not going to be seeing me week in and week out coming to talk to you guys and everything, especially with school starting back. You probably won't see me for about 6 months. So y'all can cheer about that in private. But we do have our loyal followings. I see several of our faces out here. We are going to still be here. We still don't want it. We still don't like it. But you probably won't be seeing us nearly as much. But we're still out there. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. I saw Ms. Jenkins leave. Did she come back in? Mr. Randy Bright.
Mr. Chairman? Yes, I just want to mention quickly, not to take any of Mr. Bright's time, but Ms. Brandenburg, just so that you know, the information that we've had thus far, all of the information that you've provided, I've attached that. All of council members have all of that information, as well as I sent the information out what DHEC has provided to everyone, so council does have all of that information.
Thank you.
Right.
Okay, Randy Bright, District 1, Ridgeway. Nice presentation, from the spotlight presentation. I still think we're cheating our staff by not providing them with performance metric tools, and we're cheating the taxpayer by not providing performance metric tools. Enough said on that subject for now. I have a few questions. Based upon our recent quote from our chairman and also the recent pass for contract extension given to our auditor, I've got to wonder, are we doing bid contracts for all of our hundreds of thousands of dollars that we put out into legal consulting, outside audits, and of course our consulting contracts. These contracts mount up to hundreds of thousands of dollars annually, and I got to know, are we bidding them out, or are we just renewing them automatically because they're good old boys? We are still waiting for answers to questions submitted months ago. These questions largely pertain to the end-around citizens' disapproval of $43.7 million in expenditures in the name of Fairfield Facilities Corporation. Next, which of the efficiency questions submitted efficiency suggestions submitted by the expensive consulting firm have been implemented by Fairfield Hospital, if any? Why are we giving Phil Heinley $100 per month? I'll give you this list. Do we bid out the fuel service contract? Mansfield Oil receives about $80,000 a month from this county. Are we bidding that out? I don't know. There's no indication. When will the needs assessment survey results be published? When will there be a plan to address citizens' concerns expressed in the needs assessment survey? Reminder, the last survey was summarily dismissed by council in 2012. When will the long-awaited recreation plan be submitted for citizens' review? It seems like the referendum was approved long ago. Why can't the descriptions of the expenditures be included on the pay registers like other governments do? Why has a promised meeting never been held concerning an active adult retirement community? Months ago, Ms. Harrison, Ms. Kinley, Mr. Perry, and later Mr. Pope all committed to such a meeting with interested citizens. I have to assume our government is not interested in providing an economic stimulant that is virtually recession-proof and is considered a greater economic stimulant than traditional manufacturing. Please, rebuttals, remember, keep them to constructive, not excuses, just constructive rebuttals with reasons, resolutions, and not reasons. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else on
Beth Jenkins, District 2. First of all, I would like to thank you for addressing the mental health. My concern was about the vendors that we're using. I realize that the county is very compassionate towards mental health issues in our jails and with our people, and I thank you for that. I also think that what was mentioned here is a stall tactic on the PSI on the concrete. Being very familiar with that process, 2,500 or 3,500 PSI, the slump, there's no reason to delay that. There's no reason. You pour concrete, you put it in a bucket, you know what the slump is. I think that that is a bunch of double talk and a bunch of BS, for a lack of a better word. I'm not buying it, and I don't think that that should be delayed on Drawdy Park. That slump, the PSI, not buying it. Also, $8.76 million to S2. We were told January 27th that you were going to vet a company to look at S2 projects. The only one they're looking at so far is Drawdy Park, which is a nightmare. What about all the other projects that S2 has done? I'd like to know where that's at. I did ask previously, and I was told we were given an update, but it was only on Drawdy Park. I'd like to know about all the other places. If you drive around the county and look at what S2 did, it looks like the shop students did something and the shop teacher wasn't there. Drive around, look at what S2 has done. I'd like to know where we're going with that. Are we going to get something with that? As a landowner of over 10 acres, I think the county purchases of property is astronomical. I don't know who's screwing who, but something's going on here, because the property in this county is not worth what the county is paying. I think somebody needs to look into that. And that's my personal opinion, and I think it's valid. The bid bonds and things that were mentioned on tonight's presentation, are they going on now? Were they done in the past? Are they going to be done in the future? I think that's really important for us to check into, and I think that we need to pursue that. I also have a copy of the article for everyone, of the Voice article on what was done at S2, and I beg everyone here who did not get a copy of that to see me. I will give you a copy of the article, because it will blow your mind.
Thank you.
That's all, Mr. Brown. And now down to county council time. Anything for the good of council? Any comments?
Mr. Chairman, the only thing I'd like to bring up is, when we had our joint meeting up at Village Tech a couple of meetings ago, we talked about having another joint meeting. I was just wondering when we would get that
scheduled. We can come up with some dates that the council is good with, Mr. Brown. Matter of fact, we can do it before the next council meeting.
All right, that sounds good. And that's all I have.
Okay. Anything else? Council?
Mr. Chair,
Yes,
just
sir. Ms.
a
Marshall.
question to Mr. Milton, in terms of looking at this court and the amount of money that we have for all that project out of the bond money. What happens if there's a cost overrun? Or do we figure that in any kind of way?
Can't hear you.
The question I asked with the courthouse, with the amount of money we're getting for the bond, from the bond issue, what happens if there's a cost overrun? Have we figured that out or thought about it?
Mr. Pope?
The short answer is, Councilman Montoya, there is actually, of course, an amount of money that's earmarked in the bond for the project. However, you won't know what the final costs are until the projects are actually bid. And so once we actually have the bid information and know what the costs are going to be, then we will have to address that situation if, in fact, it is actually, if it exceeds what those estimated amounts are.
The Davis and Floyd, Ms. Marshall, actually, that was what they were hired to begin with for, was to give us some pretty close estimates of what those numbers would run. And so we didn't go into it without, looking into it from a perspective of what the jobs would cost to be done. If no other comments, I'll take a motion to go into executive session to receive legal advice, economic development matter, and contractual matter.
So moved, Chair.
All in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed by the same sign, the ayes have it.